Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. If you don't have a seat, I would love you to come and get one and take your seat so we can get the evening underway. Thanks, everybody. It's my privilege and pleasure to ask Tu if he will open our meeting with a karakia.
Nō tātou, māku whakatūwhira tēnei a tātou hui, rau rau nā te tango a tātou kaihanga. A o tiraki ai nui tātou. Nō nore e kōri tātou e maungaro e te whenua e whakaro pai ki ngā tango a tātou. Ngai e o he ngā whakahoki roto i tēnā i tēnā o mata whakatōni a tō wairua tapu e āwina i tohu tohu i a mata. E whaikahe mata i ngā hua pai ngā hua tika, ngā hua pono e pāna ki tēnei o tātou hui. Ora i nā mai e i wairua i a mata, te tika te pono te maramatanga. Kia tau ai e mata te rangi mai. O tira e te acha koe nenga whakamomisi ngā kōri i toi ngā tātou. Āmine, kia ora tātou.
Amen. Thank you, Tu. Good evening. Well, this is democracy in action. How wonderful. For those of you who don't know, my name is Bronwyn Fox. I prefer Bron, it's easier to remember. I am a born and bred local from Awakeri, the very proud dairy farmer's daughter. And I am also the Chief Executive of the Disabilities Resource Centre Trust in Whakatāne and the President of the Eastern Bay Chamber of Commerce. Thank you so much for making an effort to come out tonight. It is really important that you understand that this evening is about listening to some presentations and then hearing your questions and your viewpoints. So, housekeeping. The toilets are here on my left, ladies and gentlemen. If there is an emergency and we evacuate, there's an emergency exit here and the doors that you came in through from the back. So, as I said, the process for this evening is we're going to have two presentations. One on the long-term plan and the second on the development of the Rex Morpeth Park and Complex. What I would ask that you do is that you hold your questions until after those two presentations. As we take questions, I would like you to move over here. On the left-hand side, we have a microphone set up, and you will come and ask your question at the microphone, and then it will be answered by either an elected official or a senior Whakatāne District Council staff member. I'm going to ask them in a minute to introduce themselves to you, but I also just want you to think about, I want this meeting to be a positive experience for all of us. How lucky are we that we get to have an opportunity to say what our opinion is and how we view things that are going to happen. I'd like you to do that in a respectful way. If I feel that you are not behaving in that way, I will stand and I will say that the way you are speaking is not appropriate. All right? So I really want you to think very carefully about, we want to hear your voice, but do it in a respectful and kind manner. You would have seen in the notices that they are recording this event so that you will be able to access it in full on YouTube or tell people who weren't at the meeting so they can view it. All right? So I'm going to ask the people behind me and down on my right-hand side to stand and introduce themselves to you. Steve.
Paul Māori here. I'm Stephen Purdia, the General Manager of Strategy, and I'll just be presenting the overview of the long-term plan. Kia ora.
Thank you, Steve. Good evening, everyone. My name's Georgina Fletcher. I grew up on a sheep and beef farm out of Dannevirke, so we overlooked the Ruahine Ranges, they're my maunga, and we swam in the Manawatu River. I moved here with my husband about 13 years ago now. My husband runs a business and we have 3 young children who go to school here, and we're in this facility most days. It's me. I lead the community experience portfolio, which is responsible for arts and culture, sport and recreation, and facilities.
Thank you, Georgina. Good evening, everybody. John Puller is my name. I chair the Infrastructure and Planning Committee. Thank you.
Thanks, John. Julie Jukes, and I chair the Finance and Organisation Performance Committee. And
Kia ora everyone, I'm Victor Luca and I'm the Mayor, and if you didn't already know that, you probably wouldn't be here. So,
Evening everyone, I'm Wilson James. I'm represent the Rangitaiki ward on council, and I'm chairman of the Living Together Committee. I've been living on the plains farming on the plains for 40 something years now, and from out of the area, but consider this as home.
thank you, Wilson. Good evening, everybody, and what a delight it is to see you all here tonight. I'm Leslie Amake, a second-term councillor for the Whakatāne o Hopi ward, and currently Deputy Mayor. Thank you.
Tēnā rā koutou e mihi atu kia koutou i tēnei pō ki te whakahuihui mai nei mō te kaupapa. He mihi atu kia koutou. Ko Tony Boynton taku ingoa, ko au te kaikauni hira mō te wāri Māori ka Pūterani, i te tautaku pāpā no Tūhoi no Ngāti Awa, i te tautaku māma no te Raroa, Ngāti Kahu, Ngā Puhinui Tonu. Kia ora, my name's Tony Boynton. My name's Tony Boynton. I'm the Māori Ward Councillor for Ka Pūterani seat on the Whakatāne District Council. Kia ora.
Kia ora everyone, I'm Bevan Gray, I'm the General Manager of Infrastructure here at Whakatāne District Council. I'm responsible for roading, Three Waters, solid waste and ports and airport. I've been in the Eastern Bay of Plenty for 10 years now, 3 years here with Whakatāne District Council, and then 7 years previously at Portuguese District Council in a Finance and Corporate Services role. So understand some of the challenges you're all experiencing and understand greatly the needs around infrastructure that we have for our communities. Kia ora.
Kia ora tātou, tēnei te mihi kia koutou katoa, ko Mark Sykes tōku ingoa, kai whakahaere, te whare Tangaro Takitaki, Whakatāne Museum and Collection Research Manager. Kia ora, I'm local, I've been in these parts for the last 60 plus years and look forward to our hui tonight.
Kia ora tātou, ko tūwhakairi ora Brian tōku ingoa, tūwhaki au i ngā tahata o te awa te Rangitaiki i te Tiko. Good evening everybody, my name is Tua O'Brien, I hail from Te Tiko. I'm the Māori Ward Councillor for the Rangitaiki area. I'm also the Chair of Te Runanga o Ngāti Awa. Kia ora tātou.
Kia ora no tātou, ko ngā pirarangi a hoa hau, te kaikauni hira o Tuiki Uta. Kia ora tātou, my name is Ngā Pirarangi a hoa. I am the Māori Ward Councillor for Tuiki Uta. I start from Waiohau, Galatea, Murupara, Te Whaiti Minganui, Rua Tāhuna, then I come down the river of Ohine Mataroa, Tūrua Atuki, Tāne Atua, Waimana and Wainui. It's a shared space between Councillor Isles and I, and it's a pleasure to be responsible for those areas. Kia ora.
Kia ora tātou, my name is Paul Check. I'm the Manager of Properties and Facilities Assets for Whakatāne District Council, and I'm an Eastern boy. Eastern Bay boy. Thank you.
Kia ora tātou. My name is Ian Maloney. I'm the Manager of Open Spaces for the Whakatāne District Council. So that includes the management of all our parks and reserves, our sports fields and our cemeteries as well.
Kia ora, good evening everyone. I'm David Bealey. I'm the General Manager of Development and Environment Services here at the Council. I've been with the Council for 35 years, so I'm the old fella.
Tēnā koutou, ko Nando Tānso Shahau, tēnei te mihi kia koutou, ko tai mai mo tēnei hui. I'm Nando Tansosh, I'm a councillor for the Whakatāne Ohope ward, and it's really awesome to see so many people here tonight come to have your say and to involve yourselves in our democratic process.
Kia ora koutou, my name is Sarah Evans. I work at Whakatāne District Council as Senior Reserves Advisor, so in Ian Maloney and Georgia Fletcher's team. I am the project lead for the Small Perth Recreation Hub for Council.
Kia ora tātou. My name's Andy Smith. I'm the Manager of Aquatics and Recreation here at Whakatāne District Council.
Kia ora koutou, my name is Kay Borum. I'm the Principal Advisor to the Mayor, Dr. Victor Luca.
Thank you very much, much appreciated. We're now going to move on. Thanks, Victor. Thank you very much. We're now going to move on into the presentations for today, but we do have an apology from the Council Chief Executive, Steph O'Sullivan. Steph is unwell this evening, so will not be joining us, but I know there is a great team here who'll be able to answer your questions. So, like I said before, we're going to have the presentation from Steve, and then that will be followed by the presentation from Georgina. Following that, we're going to open the floor for your questions. Could I ask, please, that we're really respectful about listening to the presentations? I personally have a hearing impairment, which means that I can't focus on more than one voice at a time. And I'm sure a number of people in the audience might feel the same. We also can't hear people if they don't talk into the microphone. So that will be my challenge to you all this evening. Steve.
What the long-term plan is, and essentially how we got here today into this discussion. First of all, if you work at a council, the long-term plan is the centre of your universe. It is actually it is the plan of what we do as a council, and a lot of work goes into it because there are a lot of things, a lot of moving parts inside a council. It's a legal requirement as well under the Local Government Act. To be honest, there's probably a few of us who would do long-term plans slightly differently, but it's very prescribed in the Act. How we go through the process, and also what we need to review and consult on as part of our long-term plan process. As I said, it's our work plan for 10 years and the associated budget. So we go through this process of redefining the policies, constructing the work plan, and then developing a draft budget, and then we go out for consultation on that. It all starts with councillors reviewing the vision and priorities, and that was back in April of last year. We also did some pre-engagement at that stage and had around about 360 submissions on that, so it was really good, rich information about people's concerns, their challenges and also their aspirations, and that helped us go through a process with councillors of reviewing our strategic priorities and vision. In the current long-term plan, we have 8 strategic priorities, just as an example, and the council sort of started the process of sharpening the pencil on stuff. Back then, we went from 8 down to 5, which was a good start. But that's just the beginning of it. And those strategic priorities, I won't go through what they are. You're welcome to go online or take some of the collateral here and go through those. But once we've gone through that process of redefining the vision and the priorities, then we can start looking at all the activities of council. There's over 30 business units. They all have different customers, different funding streams, different priorities, and in some cases different work styles. So it's a long process to go through. You can't do them all at once. We also have a number of policies we have to review. And then there's looking at some of the projects, compliance requirements from central government, and then we start getting into some of the strategies. For example, we are required to do an infrastructure strategy that looks out over 30 years, and for this long-term plan we've also reviewed our climate change strategy at the same time. So it's quite a bit to get through. And it takes a long time. That's what this slide is about. You know, the planning of from staff in terms of developing the work program, which has over 40 work streams, started back in January, as I said, but then we got into the strategic direction setting with council. You can't do it all in one day. You know, things like just taking the revenue and financing policy, it has its own work stream. We have to go through a process where council has workshops to review that. They might send staff away to gather more information, come back, discuss it again before it gets to the point where it's considered a draft and ready for the draft consultation document. Yeah, so we're currently in the consultation period, and essentially that whole timeline is about getting us to a point where we can put out some draft documentation and we can get community feedback on that. The consultation is a very important part of the process. A lot of people think that councillors don't read consultation, but I can tell you that they do read the consultation. The submissions. The submission process is really important. And no decisions are final. It is a draft. The final decisions come after the council has listened to submissions, engaged with the community at various events, and gathered all of that feedback. So there's actually quite a lot that goes into the decision-making process for councillors. You've got a draft, you've got events, you've got discussions, you've got hearings, you've got submissions, and you've got feedback that's just been collected along the way as well. Councils are continually asked to deliver the same or improve things, but actually cut costs and rates. And I've worked on a few councils in my time, and a long-term plan and an annual plan has the same tension. Keep things the same or improve them, but at the same time reduce costs and reduce our rates. And the tension between these two things in this particular long-term plan has really been heightened because things are tough. Inflation rates have been at levels that they haven't been for decades. Interest rates are really high. So those things impact council just like they impact any household or business. It just costs a lot more to do the same. We've also had some other challenges in preparing this long-term plan, in that Three Waters, the previous government was going to take that off councils and had a different model for delivery of Three Waters, but then it was in mid-January to late January, and we had an early heads up obviously during the election, but it was confirmed in January that councils were to reintroduce Three Waters back into their budgets. So a lot of the work that had gone on last year, right up to Christmas, and preparing a draft budget, hadn't included Three Waters. So we had to add that back in and retrofit a lot of our work program and finances. If you have a look at the consultation document, what you'll find is the front end of the consultation document talks about, you know, the climate that we're in, the economic climate, interest rates, inflation, those sorts of challenges, and how they impact on a council. In particular, what inflation rates are like for council, which is predominantly an infrastructure business, and inflation rates in infrastructure have been significantly high. So the front end of the document talks about those challenges that that council has been, or the context for establishing the draft work plan and the draft budget. You can submit on anything. Absolutely anything. And if there is something you want to submit on, now is the time to do it. Because as I said, councillors will read all of the submissions. And I have heard people talking about, well, it's a numbers game. The more submissions you get on a particular topic, the more likely it is that that will get through. That's not true. I have seen in my time one case where it was a high school student's single submission that was against the grain that actually got council to go in a particular direction. So they're all read and they're taken on their individual merits. And I think that's a really important thing to understand. It's not about numbers. It's not about how many votes you get for a particular topic that makes it win. But you can submit on anything. Inside our consultation document, though, we talk about 4 particular questions, and those are questions where council actually really needs to hear specifically from the community on these 4 topics. I'm not going to go through them because I think during the Q&A later on we'll probably talk about these 4 things. And if you're not familiar with those questions, we're happy to explain them during the question and answer as well. But there are 4 key questions we're asking for information on. There are a number of challenges and projects we talk about in the consultation document, but your submission doesn't have to be limited to that. You can submit on anything. There's a lot of places you can go to get information, in particular the website. You can come into the contact centre. We have stuff available. If it runs out, just ask at the counter. They'll go away and they'll grab you some information. Also, if you want to talk to someone and at the front counter they can't answer your questions, they're happy to go get a staff member to help you out. The staff members here tonight, you know, a lot of the questions I think will get answered by the Mayor and the Council, but actually the staff are just here to provide technical advice and answer any specific questions that are sort of dropping down into a level of detail that councillors might not know. And same with if you come into the contact centre will happily find you a staff member that can answer specific questions that you have. It won't be the same staff member because no one's really across all of it, you know, because there are so many things, so many different departments and so much stuff to be aware of in the long-term plan that actually it takes talking to a technical specialist to get the sort of information that you might want if you're constructing a submission. We've also had a number of events. There have been a lot, and this week, of course, is the last week. We close our consultation on Friday. This is not the last event. I am aware that there's one tomorrow afternoon as well. There might be a couple of others. But we're drawing towards the end of the events, and the submissions close on Friday. So if you want to put in a submission, Friday is your deadline. The other thing I would encourage you to think about too is you do have the right to be heard. Anyone who makes a submission can signal to the council that they'd like to be heard and come in and talk to council about their submission. We call that hearings, the hearings process. And the thing to remember here is you can't register to do a hearing unless you've made a submission, because the principle is that you're coming in to be heard on your submission. So if you want to be heard, make a submission. If you want to make a submission, do it by Friday, and let us know if you want to be heard. I was just going to finish up with a few dates. Talks about the hearings, the deliberations process. That's where council considers all of the information that has come back on the draft, and it makes any final changes. Remember, what we put out is not the final copy. The final long-term plan gets determined after the deliberations, and there are always changes during the deliberations phase. And that's why submissions and that feedback process from the community is so important, because it does make a difference. So I'm just going to leave it there and hand over to Georgina to talk about Rex Morpeth Park.
Thank you, Steve. Good evening, everyone. So as Steve said, I'm here to talk to you about the Rex Morpeth Recreation Hub project. I thought I'd start with just a little bit of history. So the hall opened in 1955. £20,000 was raised for the build. Then, in 1978, the Little Theatre and additional court space was added through the vision of Rex Morpeth at a cost of £1 million. And at the time, nobody knew how they could possibly raise $1 million to improve the facility. But the community came together, they sold stock, they baked, they knitted in order to raise funds for this fabulous facility that we enjoy today. Since then, Council has maintained the building as necessary within allocated budgets. and in 2020 earthquake strengthening was done of the hall. We've been talking about doing something to the hall and the surrounding area for quite some time. It's been in every long-term plan since 2012. In 2015, I looked it up today, and it said, this LTP includes a project to redevelop the hall into a modern, flexible facility, catering for events, conferences, indoor sports and theatre activities. And then again in the 2018 and then again in the 2021 LTP, it was widened to include a multi-sports hub. In 2021, a budget of $10 million was allocated to the hall for a multi-sports events centre and investigation and construction work. And there was 50% external funding tagged to the project. So in the previous plan, we were budgeting on receiving 50% of the funding from external parties. So why is this project important? The provision of community halls and indoor and outdoor sports facilities and facilities for our arts is one of Council's core services. I'm sure you've all enjoyed many an event here in our facility, watched people perform on stage. We began with a photo of Anzac Day, our Anzac Day services, our Christmas lunches for people who have nowhere to go, basketball, volleyball, you name it, it happens in this hall. Our darts, it all happens here. This facility serves not just the Whakatāne district, but the entire Eastern Bay of Plenty. And it hasn't really had any significant investment in the park or the facilities for 50 years. The stadium is booked beyond capacity and cannot cater for current or new activities. Different sports are popular now. We're now seeing a massive rise in basketball, badminton, volleyball, and just most recently, this year, many of the tennis club are now playing pickleball inside our stadium. But the demand for court space exceeds supply. Our rugby park grandstand requires seismic strengthening, or we face closure. But it's not just about investing in that grandstand and replacing it with what we have today, because times are changing. We've now got more females playing what were traditionally only male sports. How do we provide the changing rooms for that for everyone? And how do we not just serve one sport with a grandstand facility? How do we provide for additional sports as well? Our little theatre, it needs a number of health and safety improvements. Sue Whale, Chair of Arts Whakatāne, wrote to the Beacon just recently. Sue's been a user of that facility for many years. The rain comes through the roof. There's inadequate lighting. We still operate a rope pulley system, whereas in other theatres you simply push a button. The air conditioning's broken. You're either too hot or too cold. Broken seating, and users need to bring their own lighting. So something does need to be done about our theatre if we want it to remain open. Our playground requires some further health and safety improvements. This facility serves as our main civil defence emergency centre. The photo there, whilst not a civil defence emergency, but is of the Apanui school children who came and we turned these very rooms into classrooms after many of their facilities were burnt to the ground. We've all seen what the parking's like when we have large events, and not even just large events. Saturday morning sport, when you've got everyone who wants to be here at the same time, people are parked all over the curbs. There's also limited ability from our current facility to generate economic benefit for the wider district. So what did we do about this? Last year, we gathered all the key users of this facility and the surrounding fields. So all of our clubs, our croquet members, our dance members, our volleyball, our theatre. We brought them all together and we held a hui here. And we talked to them about what was great about the facility and what wasn't, and what they would like to see change. And from that, we came up with 4 different options for how we could improve, with the guidance of professional consultants, of 4 different planning options. Do we renovate the existing hall? Do we knock it down and move it to a different part of Rugby Park? Do we join it with the Aquatic Centre? Do we move our theatre into town? And then we came back to that same key user group and we played around with all those options to come up with the 4 plans that we put out to the community last year for your input. And from those four plans that were put forward, which included a very basic, only do the minimum amount absolutely necessary to the facilities option, we received 305 submissions on the consultation. A number of those submissions represented groups. There was a petition submission which had 364 signatories, which related to people who really wanted a bridge first instead of any investment in Rex Morpeth Park. We also received a number of submissions from clubs who represented many people. Pāro Sports Club, representing a club of 400 members, both rugby and netball. Marist Rugby Sports Club and Eastern Bay Rugby Union, who represent over 2,500 players and 120 referees and coaches. Whakatāne Society of Arts and Crafts, submission on behalf of 160 members. Edgecombe Choir, 50 members. Whakatāne Badminton, 110 members. There were also many clubs who did not submit because they felt that their voice had already been heard through the planning stages. And as Steve said, it's not a matter of numbers like an election or a democratic voting process. Rather, it's all about hearing from you, the community, in a variety of different ways, and making an informed decision based off the community voice. So after the engagement, we came back and the consultants reviewed alongside many staff, and we reviewed all of that detailed analysis. And the consultant team recommended a master plan option. And that option was most similar, but not exactly the same, as option 1, which included refurbishing the hall in its current location. And this is the proposal that went forward into the draft budget that we have today. The proposal allows for a multi-purpose facility with significant upgrades to the hall, including the Little Theatre, a sports pavilion to replace the existing Rugby Park grandstand, an accessibility-friendly playground, increased parking space, and other required improvements over the entire precinct. So through all of that engagement, we were ready. We were ready to come to you, to engage with you through the long-term plan process. And part of the long-term plan, we are asking you, how do we fund, scale, and stage necessary upgrades to the Rex Morpeth Recreation Hub? 2 options have the significant budget of 105.7 million in them, and they give you the option of, do you want us to go out and get 35% external funding, or do you want us to go out and get 50% external funding? And the way those projects are made up, so the preferred option by councillors, and the one that is in the budget, requires 50% external funding, and the ratepayer contribution of $44 million. The significant spend under the preferred option does not take place until 2029 and 2030. So the budget provides small amounts of investment over the next few years to allow us to do more planning and to secure external funding. The third option that we are asking you about is, do you just want us to do the bare minimum? Do you just want us to do what is necessary to keep these facilities open? And after further work following the consultation process, and we went out and we got QSs to value the cost of those works, we think that that comes in at $12.5 million. And so those are the options that we are asking for your opinion on. So how does external funding work? Partner funding for community-focused projects such as this one are common in New Zealand. We cannot attract external funding though without a plan. And the long-term plan provides for us to do more planning work in order to secure that external funding. Any external funder is going to ask you, what are you willing to put forward? What are you willing to put forward into the project? External funding can be obtained from a variety of sources: central and local government funding, corporate sponsorship, trust funding, and community fundraising. We've begun those discussions with external funders, and the government's just about to release its new regional infrastructure fund. But we have to be ready to seize those opportunities. We have to be ready with a plan. We've got to show them that we have thought about what investment is required in order to gain that external funding. So what happens next? We receive all of your submissions, the councillors read them, and at the end of the long-term plan process, the councillors need to decide what level of funding to allocate to this project. And depending on that level of funding that goes into the 10-year plan, different decisions will be made. Now, if the significant sum is included in the budget, a project of this size and significance will have many milestones and opportunities for the communities to have their say about what the future of this facility looks like. And we welcome this. If the big number goes in the long-term plan, it doesn't mean that we're going out tomorrow to secure contractors to carry out a full-scale redevelopment. It means that we're going to do further planning and we're going to work out how we can secure external funding to help attract that either 50% or 35% external funding, whatever it is that you, the community, and the elected members then decide. The rating impact of the preferred option is about 3 cents per week over the first year. It is a capital project, which means we can fund it from borrowings and alongside external funding. This is how we fund projects that benefit people intergenerationally. Following that, we are happy to take questions. Where's our Bron?
Well done, well done. Keeping it nice and brief and to the point so we get to hear from you. So here is what I would like to see. If you would like to raise a question or give us a viewpoint, the microphone over here is available and I'd like you to go and line up so that we can have your questions, and then we will have somebody from the panel answer what you're raising, and we've got scribes and things like that. If the issues that you are raising are more technical and more complex and the team can't answer them for you, then actually that material will be answered and published for you. So I've got a question because nobody else is standing up and rushing. So I'm going to put my CE hat on from the Disabilities Resource Centre. Can we make sure that council documentation is in a font big enough that people can read? Because that's one of the biggest feedback I get, that some of the documents are little weeny things. So could we just, for those of us that need slightly bigger font, could we address that, please? Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Oh, a question. Lovely.
Kia ora, I'm Prue Rangi from Ohope. I have a couple of things I'd just like to quickly bring up. One of those is I really think the food scraps bins are totally a waste of time and effort. Most stuff can go into your green waste bin and I've got an incinerator. The only thing that goes into my rubbish is bones, and they're pretty clean because I wrapped them first. I would say the biggest part, because you said we want to get rid of the stinky stuff, that's nappies. Put nappy bins out for those who want for babies, and that could go somewhere so you can bury them and it's not in with the waste. I've gone on walks around in the neighbourhood and you walk, ooh, you know who's got a baby. So that would be my thing on the bins, and those people can pay for that service. The other thing is the consultants' costs for a lot of this type of work. You know, what happened to that 10 million you said? Was it in 2015 or something? There was 10 million allocated for upgrade, or looking at upgrades on the hall. You know, has that been spent, or is that sitting in a bank somewhere and not gaining interest, or, you know, paying off debt? Quite honestly, if you're looking at the future would be out of town, buying a farm. You know, you've got 100 and something million set aside, buy a farm, do it from ground up and do the job properly. You'll have parking, you'll have facilities, and we're looking ahead at the 60-year plan for the next 60 years. That's my thinking on that type of thing.
Thanks, Prue. I'm just going to get somebody, and hope somebody's going to go at that for me, to talk about rubbish. Rubbish first. Waste.
Not talking rubbish, hopefully.
Kia ora, Prue. Thank you for your comment and feedback. The food waste collections are part of a legislation that we have to respond to because we are within 150 kilometres of a food waste processing plant. I understand. I get your logic around including it in the green waste, and that's one of the options we've put forward into the consultation. I don't personally think that food waste separately is going to work either, but it's one of the things that a lot of other councils do. So we're trying to provide all the options for the community. I know we do have some challenges around what is the processing going to look like in the end, and I do know that nappies are a significant challenge as well. Over in Apotiki we used to have rubbish bags that you pick up, and so it'd be terrible for our contractors going around picking up rubbish bags. At least we've got bins here that get emptied by machine. So thank you for your input, and I've noted your points down here.
Thank you.
Thank you. In relation to your question about whether the $10 million has been spent, no, it hasn't. Only a small sum of that has been spent on the consultants last year to do the planning that was taken out to the community, although noting that it wasn't $10 million, it was $5 million of real money, and we were banking on securing $5 million of external funding. The future is out of town. We did consider this, and we spoke to councils who have put their key community facilities out of town. And accessibility was one of the key matters that was raised. You know, the brilliance of having fields and community facilities right in the heart of your town, make them very accessible, especially for young children coming from after school. But the future may be that we require, you know, as our community continues to grow, we may need another facility. But also, if you all think about some of the best cities that you know in the world, they've retained green space in the heart of their cities. And so we did also look at whether there's a lot of people who think that we should put housing on some of the fields here. But again, and those full reports where we considered those matters are available on our website. So we did consider it. For now, the recommendation is that we invest here, but I do think that you're right. Eventually we will need another facility out of town.
I think we need to think long term, that's all.
Thanks, Prue. I'm going to move us along. Next, please. Fine, sir.
My name's Don Meads.
Hello, Don.
I've written a few articles in the paper recently, and I want to see this bloody crystal ball that you've got that can give us 10 years out in front. And that's not taking into account any tsunamis or any earthquakes or any explosions or volcanoes or the such like. Where is this crystal ball that can give you the right to make a 10-year plan? Because none of you can. No one can actually make a 10-year plan without bullshit. Right? Therefore, we, the ratepayers of Whakatāne, have been fed this over and over and over and over again because you don't know what the hell you're doing.
Okay.
You're pretending and you're keeping the employment situation in right.
Okay. Thanks, Don. I really appreciate your point of view. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, and Steve or one of the team will tell me, the 10-year plan is legislated by government.
I don't give a about legislation that is not correct and not for the community.
Don, thank you. I appreciate your opinion. I can do without the bad language.
It's not bad language,
Please.
it's honesty,
Well, it
and that's
is,
how
and
Kiwis
actually
talk.
we're in mixed company, and I just really ask you to consider that. What I'm saying is that I really appreciate your point of view, and what you're saying, I just want to check, is that actually you think 10 years is way too long. And what you would see is that it would be much better if a plan was much shorter, because we can't forecast the future.
Precisely.
Right.
And our representatives, the democratically representatives, should have the right to hire and fire anybody that's employed on the council, not the CEO, so that they're only allowed the CEO.
So one of the things, as the team have said, Don, it's a very valid opinion, and I would hope to see that you will be putting in a submission with that in it.
Okay.
Because,
Now,
as the team have said, those are the very things that you can actually submit to them on, not just necessarily the 4 points.
okay, next step.
Yes?
Georgina. The Rex Morford part is made up of 2 sections. One is a war memorial to the men that lost their lives in both world wars here, and I don't believe that the council is representing that and taking it with any respect. It's got a name on the front of it that you totally ignore. Now, is that justified?
So, Don, are you asking if in the plans for the redevelopment, if the war memorial is part of that?
No, I'm asking that the War Memorial Hall be held as a separate part of any sporting facilities.
So we
Right? It is a war memorial hall.
Right.
It's not a civil defence service area. It's not a civil defence for welfare. It is a war memorial to the men that served in the wars in New Zealand that have to be respected, because we wouldn't be here if we had a Hitler, although we've got a Hitler in charge of the council at the moment.
I absolutely agree with you.
Okay, now the next step.
One more, Don. One more, because there's a queue behind you.
Well, that's fine.
I would challenge and encourage you to put in your submission about those very things. Next, please.
Hi, my name is Cynthia, and I'm quite angry, as well as probably almost everyone that I've seen.
Can you just go a bit closer to the mic? Thank you.
My name is Cynthia, and I'm feeling quite cross about the things that I've heard, the things that council's planning, some of the things that have happened in the past, and that's why I'm here. I'm here to be a bum on a seat, to be a number, to show that I care about what's happening in our community. My question and my concern is really about trust. when you talk about numbers, Steve and Georgina, you mentioned it doesn't matter about how many people might talk about one thing. We don't listen to the numbers. But should we really trust that? Because what did you do when it came to submissions or opinions? Because submissions actually means to submit to what already is planned, perhaps, but sidetrack that. When it came to the council redevelopment of their buildings, did you pay attention to the numbers of people who had an opinion on how much money or what they thought should be spent on the buildings? I don't believe you did. So hence my huge feeling of mistrust for the council. And you stand up and you speak a good speak and you say the things that, with your little PowerPoint and everything, and that's all very nice and pretty. But the gist of it is that why should we trust you? You talk about, you have your consultation meetings, like in the Sunday market down here on whenever it was, and I spoke to a few people. And that's all nice. You're ticking the box for, we've consulted with the community. But what are you going to do with our consultations? You say you're not going to look at numbers. And I the way, Georgina, you were talking about the Rex-Morpeth development, it feels like even though you're saying nothing's a done deal, we're listening, we're consulting, we're collaborating. But my feeling of lack of trust is that even during your presentation, it felt like you were funneling us in to what you actually really want to do anyway, which... So that just brings me back to my lack of trust. If you have, so Steve and Georgina and whoever else, if you had a majority of opinions, not submissions, opinions from people who put their piece of paper in to say, we want, or I want the minimum amount done to preserve the War Memorial Hall, upgrade the facilities, but the minimum amount that as a family, I'm struggling to pay the groceries, I'm struggling to pay the bills, but you want to take more money out of our already tight budget to pay for all these grand things that are really lovely, but I'd really love some beautiful art in my house, or a new couch, or some new carpet, or some wallpaper. Can't afford it, can't do it. So that's...
So Prue, I'm actually going to get
my
a
name's not
response.
Prue, my name's Cynthia.
Sorry, my apologies. Steve, would you like to respond or not?
Thanks for that. I was going to say, to be honest, that sounds like a submission. So the council puts out a draft, no decisions are made, and it's seeking feedback. You're giving feedback. That's a submission, and I hope you've put those thoughts to paper, and you're making a submission. So I just wanted to make that comment, and I just also want to clarify that the intent of what I was saying at the beginning is people shouldn't get caught up in the idea that the more people that submit on one thing will always succeed. There are situations where a lone voice can make a difference, and I just wanted to say that can happen.
So
Not that it is the rule, but it can happen.
So
but yeah, it sounds like you're making a submission.
So then whose lone voice was it that decided to go against the majority of submitters about the council upgrade? Because that's what we're talking about now with how you're going to spend our money and increasing our rates and you're pushing the Rex-Morpeth redevelopment hub. It's just questions to ask. There's a lot of mistrust. I haven't spoken to one single person who said, woohoo, I can't wait for all the money they're going to take out of our weekly budget for our rates because we're going to get this amazing new facilities. Not one person. Everyone's feeling really angry and disillusioned with you all. And the fact that we feel you're ticking a box to say you're consulting, collaborating, but your track history shows that you actually aren't listening to the majority of people. And what you did with Raywin Kingsley Smith's, when even you, Georgina, said that she wanted a bridge. She wanted a bridge before she wanted rate increases. Her petition was rallying people round to object to the rate increase. She's an older lady. She managed to get a lot of people who went out of their way to sign that. They weren't signing saying we want a bridge. They were signing that they didn't want the rate increase. And you did her a huge disservice, and it made me very cross reading about that in the Beacon. And you've got a lot of people in the community that saw what you did and are not happy with it.
Thanks, Cynthia. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Cynthia. And it's a really interesting word, trust. And trust means different things. Let me finish my sentence. I was going to say,
could I
some
just
people
ask
think
that we are respectful of a response, because we are being respectful of you having your point of view. Actually, can you let the speaker speak? And then if you have a follow-up question, we'll allow that. Thank you.
trust can mean different things, not to different people, but there are different levels of trust when you're putting and making decisions. So I totally agree that with the Civic Centre upgrade, there was a greater response of people that didn't want the council chambers to be upgraded. And that wasn't 100% unity around the council table. But the thing is, you elected us here to make some pretty tough decisions for not just your futures, but for your grandchildren's futures as well. And sometimes it's a decision that we have to make that a lot of people might not agree with at the time, but as time passes, people get used to the idea, they get to use the facilities, they get to see the benefits that come through. And it's not an easy thing sitting around the table. And for me, the Rex Morpeth, I was like many of you, a few years ago, like I only used it infrequently, I wasn't in here all the time. And when we started getting all the design work done, I was like, $100 million, you've got to be joking. But the thing about the process and the long-term plan is that it's a bit of a roadmap. It is a plan for the future of the community. And there's so many things wrong here. There's actually more things wrong than there are right. And when it was in the long-term plan 4 terms ago, it started off the long-term plan at 10 years, then it came into 7 years in the next triennium, then it came into 4, and all of these users of the facilities that we've been talking about, it was actually their turn to get the upgrade of the whole precinct this coming year. Councillors, taking into consideration the current economic environment, have already bumped it to year 4 before anything major starts. So, we feel and we hear how anxious everybody is about the impact of the rates. And, it started out at 38%, 28%, and we're down at 17%. We're not happy with that either. But we're already starting at 11.5% just on catch-up mode from all the financial backlog that we have with all the other cost of living increases. So we've only really got 5% of keeping all of our services business as usual and looking forward to the future. And the Rex Morpeth precinct just happens to be one of those projects. I'll just pass on to Councillor Santos.
I'm going to cut you off, and I'm going to go to the next question, and then I will give you an opportunity in the nicest possible way. Cynthia, can I just apologise again for getting your name wrong? I do really apologise for that. Sorry. I'll pay more attention next time.
Firstly, I just want to say that I don't believe trust does have different levels. I believe trust is trust. You trust that people will care about you and have your best interest at heart, and that there isn't a level of, I care about you, I don't care as much, I care a little bit, I don't care at all.
Thanks, Cynthia. Thank you.
Can you hear me?
I can.
I know what it's like to be hard of hearing. I've got hearing aids.
Stand really close to the mic.
That better?
Much better.
Okay, so look, I'm just a layman, but you guys obviously on the council must have some pretty brilliant business brains here. So can you tell me the average earning of the ratepayer in this area?
Oh.
Because you would have had to have... here comes Victor.
I think the average earnings for a member of our community is about $27,000 to $35,000 annual. But the median income in our district for a household is around probably $68,000.
Okay, so you've taken this all into conclusion about how much you believe you will need to loan so that people can pay it off, and you've looked at how much they're earning to whether they can afford to pay that or not.
Well, the issue of affordability is one that's been foremost in my mind.
Okay,
and
I'm just
in
saying
my
that
mind,
I'm a layman
anyway.
to how you guys orchestrate things. So we are now officially in a recession, correct? So that's got to have a layer there. I pay, and it's not just your rates, I've got to pay these other guys that live out of town rates as well. And you guys double feed me because you make me pay water rates as well. So I'm paying probably, I don't know, $100 a week in rates, and I don't even have a footpath.
Yeah,
So-
no, I'm hearing you, and I think my councillors are hearing you as well.
Yeah, so that's kind of really my point, you know. And the other thing about the colour blindness dude, where's he? Okay, so what colour do you think I am? I'm a white guy who lives in a home who voted X on the Māori roll.
I'd really like to commend you for raising affordability because I know for lots of families that's significant at the moment. So thank you, Sue, for raising that. I think it's really important. Next.
Good evening. My name's Harry.
Hi, Harry.
Two things. Number one, a second bridge. Very important. Because the sea levels are rising. Now, according to David Attenborough, if the ice caps and everything else melt, where we are here will be 16 feet underwater. Okay, so, you know, that's what's said. Second bridge out of town, down the south, across, so that people from Rotorua can come in the back way of town. That's probably the best way to do it. Now, the next one is water, free waters. Now, we need to do it, but the funding for it, people will say that I'm knocking a holy cow, but the Harbour Board Fund should be used for all the Harbour Board area restructure for free waters. And then, because they're getting water from outside, then if they've got to upgrade the pipes either way, sewage or coming in, then that should be used towards, you know, the money from the Harbour Board should be used for that. The marina, very nice, but there are umpteen problems with contamination. So are we really going to waste a lot of money trying to... You've got to get rid of that soil somewhere. So isn't it better to use the Harbour Board Fund to do the free waters service for the area that it covers? Okay.
Thanks, Harry. I'm going to ask Mayor Luca to respond.
Bridge, marina and three waters, right? Bridge. A lot of people in this town I know feel that we need a second river crossing. We'll call it that way. This council voted on the 10th of August of last year to require council staff to prepare a proposal for a second river crossing. That resulted in a request to Whakatāne, which is on the Regional Land Transport Plan at the moment, for a second river crossing as part of the spatial plan, and we're requesting $500,000 in order to build a business case for a second river crossing. before you can do anything, you need to have the business case. The business case will define if there's a need for a second bridge, where it would be located, what it would be made out of, what its design would be, the on and off roads, and the costs. Without that, that's what I would call the first step. In terms of Three Waters and marinas, well, I'll just deal with the Three Waters part of it. We have a lot of urgent needs in this district, and a long-term plan is about prioritising things. Now, you've got a council of 11 people. We're not necessarily all on the same page. It would be a sad day when all 11 of us were all in perfect agreement. That would be what I would call a dysfunctional council. So we're not all on the same page. And priorities are different for different people. Me, personally, I'm an infrastructure guy. I want to see basic infrastructure built. In the waters area, we've got some serious problems. We've just spent, this council, 3 years talking about water. This country has an infrastructure deficit, apart from water, of about $110 billion. That's because we've pushed growth and we've ignored infrastructure for 4 decades. It didn't just happen yesterday. So water, we have some real serious vulnerabilities. In this town, we depend on that river. That water plant provides water for the town, for Ohope, and for coastlands. So I consider that to be a priority. How we fund it, well, we've got money on the long-term plan, but not for removing the vulnerabilities of our water source. But we've got a lot of other things to do. There are too many things to do and not enough money to do it. And that is something that gets to the point of a serious failure in how local government is funded. We've been talking about that for 3 years as well. And there's no real solution on the table even today. Essentially, we've been cut adrift and told, well, go and sort yourselves out. And that's what's happened in Three Waters. We all were many of us were in agreement that council should retain control and ownership of water. I think that's important. I lobbied for that hard myself. But now comes the question of how we fund it. And I prefer that central government stepped up to the plate and handled that. They were responsible for building a large part of the infrastructure in this country when the population was half what it is today. But that's all back in debate again. At the moment, we've got $170 million on our long-term plan. It's not enough. But we know that there are lots of affordability issues, and so you've got to make do with what you've got.
Thanks, Victor. Next, please.
Can you hear me?
I can.
My name is Alan White.
Hello, Alan.
I was born in Podiki. I moved here as a 15-year-old and I've been here for 50 years. I'm a mechanical engineer by trade, having a degree, and I'm a numbers person. My wife told me not to get up first and not to ask too many questions, so I could be here for a long time if people ask me to continue. So I'm going to ask you 2 things. I will say up front that I have approached the council to talk to their financial people about some of my questions, but I'd like the crowd just to understand where I'm coming from and what concerns me most of all. So it's a shame you don't actually have the detailed plan that you can flick up there, but I'm going to talk about the gap. The gap is option 3, which the council have selected as being the longest possible time to drag out the gap to get this $14 million fiscal budget. Bear with me. I just need to look something up from here. On page 30, which is the gap, the text says, this will see an additional cost to ratepayers of $2.4 million added in year 1, which is the text. Then the first line says the weekly increase for an average place will be $14.09. I've multiplied $14.09 by 52 weeks by the 16,000 rateable units in this area. And I get $11.8 million, not 4.2. And if I go to the next page, which is which is the nice page that actually is telling you what the average rate increase is. In year one, you actually say it will be $14.09 per week. And the answer is 11.8. So that's an awful lot of the $14 million gap that we've fiscally got in 1 year, which is amazing. The following year is $10.57, which is another $8 million. So in a year and a half, the council's making $14 million. But what you've got to remember is that $11 million that we did in year one, it's $11 million for every year afterwards. The $8 million in year two is $8 million for every year afterwards. The words don't equal the text, and as a ratepayer, I need a very clear, transparent document which will allow me to make an informed decision and do an informed submission to the council. Now, I would like somebody before they stand up in the council queue to get their cell phone out and their calculator and do that number. Now, this is not the only area in this document where the words don't match the text at all, and some of the behaviour from the councillors describing a project don't match the financial implications. I've spent almost a week going through the documents, and I'm going through Three Waters today, and I won't talk about it, but it's a very interesting look at Three Waters. But to give you a little bit of a summary, the text says the council have only looked at the first 2 years and have not considered Three Waters in the remaining years. They're going to do the minimum to operate the plant and the minimum to do maintenance on it. So don't stand there and tell me Three Waters drives this thing to the end, because there's a big hit coming later on. So that's the first one. Would you like me to do the second one, or can you respond?
No, I'm gonna actually just narrow you down to the one question, because actually...
No, so you're correct. No, I'm happy. I've either calculated it wrong or right.
No, and I'm not saying that we actually won't have some answers for you, but I'm very conscious that actually there are a number of people waiting to ask questions. All of the questions are being recorded, and there will be a response. So please don't think I'm trying to cut you off. I'm not. I'm just conscious that I want to have as many people as possible have their say. All right. So the questions about the finances.
I think you have to just... You have to be a little bit...
Can I just say that's really inappropriate.
And your behaviour is inappropriate, cutting this man off.
Sir, I'll deal with him. I think you're being very rude, and this meeting was about talking about facts, not emotions, not doing World War II signals. So I think we need to sort.
I will remind you, sir, that is inappropriate, and I won't put up with it, because actually I want everybody who wants to have a say to have their say. My intention is not to cut you off, sir, and I hope you feel that I am not doing that.
I think you have to be very cautious about interpreting that table, because we've used the word average household. These are indicative numbers just to give you an idea, because there could be 2 of those places, in fact, let's just exaggerate, and 10 of the low value properties. So you have to be careful with how you use that table.
I'll remind you that your table says that it is the average that would be over every unit in the district. So it is 14.09 times 60. So my question is the calculation right? The document says 2.4, the answer is 11. It's enormous. I don't expect you to answer it here, but I don't know how to now do an informed submission on that topic.
Yeah, look, thank you very much. Mr. White's coming in to see our CFO, so that's great. You said that at the beginning too, acknowledge that, so I appreciate that. We really want the document to be accurate and right, and if anybody has any concerns with the numbers or thinks that there might be something that's not quite right or doesn't add up, then contact us, because we do. We want to get it right. So appreciate you coming in. I know it's a little bit late in the piece, but I think it's great that you're coming in to talk to us, and Gary's looking forward to that.
It is very late, Stephen.
One of the things that I would like to undertake as MC for this evening is to make sure that the questions that are raised have answers, and that is public based on tonight. So I will have that. I have written some notes about the stuff that you've said, because I think it's really important, and thank you very much. Really appreciate it.
My second example. I sort of read the food thing and thought, great idea, and went straight past it. And then I actually read it, and it says that my food waste will increase because of that by $35 to $45 a year sitting in here. The numbers that you've produced between last year and this year shows that my waste, my refuge cost is going to be $218. I've added GST to make it so it's comparable, which is a big number different to 45. So the average person thinks it's 45, but it's enormous. It's 40% of the whole increase, and water's another big number. But on that subject, because it was spoken about, I'd like to point out what you said in your documentation once again. I'll quote, "The government has indicated," indication, by the way, means it's not confirmed it could change, "that councils will need to introduce food waste collections to urban properties by the 1st of January 2027, which is 2.5 years away. And my question is, why are we doing a fiscal spend so early on a item that is only currently indicated and is at a proposed date in the future? Because we just can't afford to do it, and it's a lot of money. But also, it's $45 versus $220.
220 to 45 to 220, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, and before I get my answer, just to help along here, the waste levy, which has been in place since, let me tell you the dates. Oh, I have to apologise, but it goes back to about 2020 or 21. It's been increasing every year. Next year it goes up by $10 a tonne. And if you read the council information, everything to landfill was 13,000 odd tonnes. So that's $138,000 is the increase from that, which certainly doesn't account when you divide it by 16,000, well, 13,000 because they're not all done. It's a tiny number. And before you get all excited to come back, the other note in here is that it's all because of the EST units, which is the Emissions Trading Act on landfills. That's also been in place for a while. And if you do some documentation reading, you'll see that you could buy a unit for $2. That used to be $35. It peaked at $75 recently. It's sitting at $55. If you do the same calculation again.
I'm going to move you along, Ellen.
Yeah.
I'm just concerned.
So anyway, I'll stop because it is nowhere near
Right.
the tell you the number, the $3.1 million extra that you're going to get out of curb collection by increasing it $200.
Thank you, Ellen. That's some really good points there. I'd just like to break them down into two parts. So the bit we're consulting on is, as you've correctly pointed out, food waste collection in 2027. We're wanting to get some feedback around what a recommended option is from the community so that we can do some investigation in terms of options and ultimately where that food processing goes. It doesn't have any impact on the proposed rates increase for next year though. So part of the $14 million funding the gap that was talked about earlier is the contract increases across the country in terms of waste management collection. So that's our collection service that gets picked up, the trucks that come in here, collect and take it to landfill in Tirahia. There's been a significant increase in those costs through the last annual plan process. We didn't collect all of that costs through rates, and so part of that $14 million gap is the increase in solid waste costs, which will be a key driver for next year's rates increases, on top of the other bits you've mentioned around waste levy and ETS.
So just to give people in the crowd an example, in the year 24-25, sorry, in the year 23-24, the per property, so this is a $730,000 property, value average urban, the rates bill was $270 related to rubbish without GST. And now it's $459 this year coming. So I'd love to be the negotiator that changed that. That's per tonne. That's per rate, per 16,000 properties. That's an awful big number to tell me that that's a natural increase. It's actually a 70% increase in 1 year. So I mean, once again, I'll just reiterate the reading of the document, the perception. No one's even spoken about this in here. There's no comment about the fact that waste management between this year and next year is increasing 70%, from $269 to $459 without GST. It's not what I call consultation.
Yep.
I'm having difficulty, once again, by Friday, to have a clear understanding, to do a clear submission. And I'd actually ask the councillors to vote to shift the date and then supply some data we can understand. And I could carry on, but I'm going to sit down now. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you very much.
When you come in and talk to Gary, Ellen will be keen to sit down and look at those numbers as well.
Great, thank you very much.
Madam-
David, I actually have people in a queue behind you.
I'm sorry, mine is a point of order,
Right.
and it's very short. Time is racing away. Some of us clearly are being frustrated that we may not all have a chance. I would like to, through you, broach the subject of extending this meeting by 30 minutes.
Yes, I think that we have a general agreement. I am going to tighten up on questions because I'm just really concerned that everybody gets to say their question. The team are going to be here at the end as well, all right? So, but yes, I think people are happy to extend it a bit longer. So thank you, David, much appreciated.
Thank you for your consideration.
Welcome. Sir.
Okay, my name is Boots McNaught. I've been around this town since 1948. I used to catch hearings off the old butter shed down there, which is now the fishing club. And the bar hasn't changed. They all talk about the old sea rising and that. I don't think it's rising in Whakatāne at all. But I think what Whakatāne, we in Whakatāne got to remember, our town was built on a bloody swamp, okay? And it used to be open canals. And we've had councils in the past, and they put pipes in the ground and covered them up. They can't even see whether they're blocked or not. Now, I went through the flood era in the 2000, okay? Now, I can tell you honestly, the flooding in this town was 100% responsible on the council because they were not doing their infrastructure, they were not cleaning the screens. We had a public meeting, and we got a brand new pump station. McAllister, since then we haven't looked like flooding, Okay, and I'm quite pleased with that because I put a lot of effort in. I spent half past 2 in the morning down there raking leaves out and everything, all right, which was supposed to be done by the council. They had a $200,000 truck there with a brush on. They never used it. But anyway, that's by the by-bys. I just want to ask one thing. I look at you people up there now. I know you've got a very hard job being on council. You probably get from both sides, okay, but I would like to know one thing. I saw figures up there, this is going to cost this much, that's going to cost that much, 10 million here. Who priced all this? Could I ask where the prices came from? You know, I used to ride my horse around here in the showgrounds. AMP show used to be here years ago, all right? Now, it's always been a wonderful centre, the Rex Morpeth Park. We used to have the AMP shows here. It's still a wonderful venue, it is. And all I just say to the council, they want us to make submissions. You know, we elect you people on council, you do a bloody good job. We rely on you to do these things. Give us the truth, the fact, get the figures right. It's not happening. It's just not happening. And I think that's the biggest frustration thing. They want to move the fishing club. They want to, you know, why? They want to put a harbour up there by the bridge. Why? Why spend that money? They've already spent $5.7 million on what? It makes me wonder, you know, and, you know, they're doing the stop bank now, what's that costing? Hundreds of thousands of dollars. You got a stupid bloody swimming pool down there that should have been jackhammered out years ago. And it's still going on. The saga is still going on. Now why don't, hey, hire me, I'll go down there with a compressor and a jackhammer and I'll get rid of it in 4 hours. And you won't have to ask, you won't have to get a price from a consultant. I'll tell you what, I'll do it for nothing. That's all I got to say.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. Next.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I just want to send greetings to our Mayor, our Deputy Mayor, our councillors and all their wonderful staff here today. Thank you for this opportunity. I've only got a couple of points and I actually don't have a question. Just in terms of Rex Morpeth Park, thank you, Georgina. I really enjoyed your presentation and I enjoyed the context and the history. I know as a person that has been brought up in Whakatāne all my life, I've used the fields, I've played soccer, I've played volleyball, I've come to the theatre, I come to your Anzac commemorations every year. Touch. It's about our community. And so thank you for trying to have a vision for the next generations. And I support it. Secondly, and I think there's a lot of grumpy people about this, but te reo is an official language of New Zealand. I'm from a dual heritage. My father's English, my mother's Māori. I'm proud of both, and I'm proud of both languages. And I think we should really enjoy that luxury of having 2 languages, actually more languages. I'm proud of all the languages, but I just want to thank the staff because bilingual language gives visibility to people that understand Māori and English. Most of the communications, 90% are in English. You get a little snippet in Māori. And so thank you for doing that. My last comment is that I know that councillors work very hard, and these councillors do. They don't do it for the money, they do it because they care about the community, and they have some wonderful staff. And I think we need to celebrate that, and also celebrate Whakatāne is a great place to live. Kia ora.
Thank you, Kat, and thank you for your comments and the manner in which you delivered them.
Could I just make a little comment that there are 3 official languages in New Zealand? English, Māori and Sign Language. Pardon me, sir?
English as a national language is only done by
There are 3 languages. Thank you. Right, next.
Hello, my name is Liam Gallagher.
Hello, Liam.
I'd just like to say to the MC, you're actually doing an amazing job.
Thank you very
Water
much.
off the duck's back. You're doing really well. I really just want to ask Council to exercise some thriftiness. We're not doing well financially. None of us. Well, some of us. Very few. You're acting as though $12.5 million is chump change. It's not. That's a lot of money. $100 million is a lot more money. And I don't think, I can't even fathom how you spend $100 million personally on such a very small area in our town. $12.5 million, I'd say, do this place up, make it look nice. Yes, put in your lighting, get your electricity sorted. And do your bare minimum. Maybe use some of that money. So I can't remember who said it out here. Buy a bit of farmland out of town. Plant an orchard. Make some free food for locals here. We've got a lot of homeless people at the moment. They could really do with it. When it comes to the bridge, I'd just like to say, Victor, you said that they were trying to figure out whether or not we need another bridge. I'll give you a precedent. We had a major earthquake not long ago, and we were told to evacuate, get out of town because of a tsunami warning. We were in gridlock. If there really was a tsunami, a lot of people would have died. Yeah, we need another bridge. No. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Gallagher. And I don't think I said we're trying to figure out if we need another bridge, but as part of a business case, you need to prove the need. So you need to prove it. That involves a lot of traffic modelling and so on and so forth, and lots of other things. But anyway, yeah, thank you.
Sir.
Kia ora koutou. My name is Sam.
Hi, Sam.
I have a question, but it's not at you guys. It's at the room. There's a lot of talk about this facility, and we had a mention of the War Memorial Hall. The War Memorial is at the front, is it not? It's not the hall itself. There is a statue or a monument outside, not the wall. And I just want to direct people's eyes around the room. We have water damage. There is black mold, missing tiles down by the front door. We had somebody up here saying this was a state-of-the-art facility. I want to ask the room, when was the last time you went into the changing rooms here? When was the last time you went backstage in the little theatre to understand why we need to improve this? And if we improve this, we can hold bigger events. And if we hold bigger events, we have more people coming into our town, supporting our local businesses. They'll stay in our hotels for the night. They'll eat out in our restaurants for the night. That's all I wanted to ask, is just have a think about when the last time you truly were in these buildings. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sam. Thank you. Mr. Milne, Sandy.
Hello there, I'm Sandy Milne, in case anybody didn't hear that. I'm a clinical lab scientist. I used to run the hospital lab, and I set up the Hepatitis Foundation of New Zealand, which is centred in Whakatāne. I'm very concerned, obviously, about sicknesses, and that's why I focused on hepatitis B, which was rife here. It isn't rife anymore. And the other thing is, before I go any further, nobody wants to have a go or be distrustful about the councillors. But I've got very good reasons for not, and I'm going to be very polite. 6 years ago, myself and Alistair Abernethy tried to elect councillors, and I spoke to the mayors was Mayor Bourne, saying it's dangerous. Alistair Abernethy, a civil engineer, said that structurally it would be a failure. If you wanted to build a pool like that, I'm talking about the kiddies pool at the Heads, if you wanted to build one like that at your own home, it would not pass the BRANZ, B-A-R-A-N-Z requirements. That was 6 years ago, and nothing has been done. It's now a sand pit and has been, or a sludge pit. It's been for 4 years. I was concerned about bacterial infection, and I personally collected a sample and I got it analysed, not by the lab here, which it should have been done by, until Tauranga took over. I got it analysed and I found fecal bug counts. Fecal bug, am I allowed to say bug? The fecal bug counts for E. coli and enterococci were sky high. I told the mayor, and I circulated council, and it was in the Beacon, and nothing was done. So if I sound a bit irritato about our councillors, it's because they've just done nothing. It's still there, a mess. I'll move on to the next, that's a fecal organism, our worry. Then there were the blooming logs, giant logs. And there were Sharpies, fish frames, crab legs in the pool. And you couldn't see the bottom because it was so dirty. And it's just a disgrace. If we can't take care of our children and our elderly people, in fact, I found out recently that dogs and cats get better treatment at times. Anyway, back to, I'm just moving on quickly. This is meant to be a questions. The question, why aren't you getting on with it? But anyway, the thing is that I really feel that I don't want to put you down, but why did you ram through that $14 million tart-up for the Civic Centre, which is now full of expensive arty stuff? And then we had some of your councillors, and one is not here today, telling us, oh, the staff were finding it very hard to work and all the conditions were terrible. Goodness me. Anyway, that was rammed through at $14 million, which would have been great help nowadays. My point is, and I'll get quickly to it, I'll firstly divert to the boat, the marina, which we must call a boat harbour. It's not a marina, that's for fun. The coping, what do you call the study at the beginning? Victor, tell me, what do you call the first study you do? Scoping study, anyway. The scoping study, yeah, I put it in myself. The scoping study was not properly done. I'm talking about the boat harbour. We put 9.8 million of community funds into it. And the government put 20 million into it. The toxin levels were much, much worse than initially reported. The testing was done poorly. And nobody had the common sense to ask the dump truck drivers who put the stuff there what they thought of it. I did. And they could have it could have saved you an awful lot of money. Moving on quickly, if you can't handle the kiddies pool, which is really what worried me most, even if it was only a trivial $600,000, if you can't handle a kiddies pool or fix a marina, how the heck are you going to manage a $107 million tart-up for this place? If I can entertain you for a minute, when I came in and I sat down over there, in front of that lady who gave an excellent presentation earlier, is it Cynthia? Cynthia, I got your name right. And I sat down and I looked up and I saw the ceiling there and I thought, why hasn't that been fixed? I could fix it in 10 minutes. And then And then, of course, this gentleman.
You wouldn't be allowed to stand on a chair though, Sandy. There are regulations.
Anyway, the point is, if they can't handle a kiddies pool or fix the marina, because it was meant to be, the soil was turned over 2 years ago nearly, and nothing's happened. And if you can't handle these things, how on earth are you going to handle this biggie? That's all. Sorry,
Thanks, Sandy. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Kia ora tātou. I'm Sue Whale, Chair of Arts Whakatāne, and I'm here to speak on behalf of all the artists and performers who use the Little Theatre and all other people who use the War Memorial Complex. I have been volunteering since 1994, done lots of hours in the arts field for the community, and I've used this facility many, many times. And I tell you, really, it does need upgrading. Do you want to have this community hub used by hundreds and hundreds of people, including sports people in the adjacent hall, and also commercial users? Do you really want that to go to pieces and be dilapidated and sit here as an empty shell? We need to have the vision, a long-term vision. This is what these 10-year plans are for, to keep facilities upgraded as they require. And then they can be used by the community as well as commercial users. And also I want to say I have full confidence in our elected councillors and in our very hard-working staff. And I find that some speakers are extremely rude in the way they address you guys. But anyway, you have my full confidence. Thank you.
Thank you, Sue. Sir.
Yes, my name's Andrew Broxham, and I'm cursed
Hello,
by the
Andrew.
inability...
Could you step closer to the
Sorry?
mic?
And I'm cursed by the inability to keep my mouth shut sometimes. So I have a couple of points to make and also serious questions to ask.
Okay.
The first one is I just want to roll back a little bit on Three Waters, because I was at the long-term plan hearings 3 years ago when the council were discussing the fact that, we know we're going to have to spend a lot of money on Three Waters, and they increased our rates at that point and for the next 3 years, and rates have gone up almost 30% in the last 3 years. And at that stage they were saying it was for, a large chunk of it was for Three Waters. And now suddenly you're saying, it's back on the table. Where's that money that was... Because I know my rates have gone up a lot, and as I'm a rural... I live on a rural property out at Potapara. I have my own septic tank. I spend $20,000 putting in my own water system, so I don't use your water. I have no footpaths, I have no streetlights, and I have an unsealed road. So when I keep seeing these percentage rate increases, I'm going, what am I getting for this? Because the simple answer is nothing. And it's getting quite stressful, because it's hard to keep paying these increasing bills. The question I have, though, and it does concern me, is that I keep seeing the number of people working for council is just increasing year on year on year. What are they all doing? I believe at the moment 320 full-time equivalent staff. That's an awful lot of people for a relatively small community. And that would be the question I would ask an answer for at this point. Because obviously part of the reason for spending the money on that new wonderful building you have was to house all these extra staff, but what are they doing for us? So why is council continually increasing in size?
Thanks, Andrew.
Thank you, Andrew, for your... Is that working? Thank you, Andrew, for your question. I think it's a really good one, because we know that staff costs are a significant expenditure for council, and it's an operating cost, not a capital cost. There's a number of things that have been driving staff increases over time, and I'll talk to what I see those as. The first one is that central government is increasingly putting more functions on council without funding us. So that means that we have to have staff to do things that we didn't have to do before. Just a simple example is the Food Act, where we now have to employ inspectors to inspect food premises, which we didn't used to do. We aren't funded by central government for that, we just have to do it. The other thing is that health and safety also increases staff numbers. So for example, if you've got a worker working underground in a remote area, we used to send one person, now we have to send two as a health and safety thing for backup. We are concerned about our staff, we do want to make sure that they're safe, but health and safety has really driven up the numbers of people that we have to employ to do some of those things. The other thing that we do, and people talk about consultants and don't like us to use consultants, we use consultants and contractors when it's a service that it's not worth, or it's not affordable for us to have that skill on staff. So for example, earthquake engineers, structural engineers, we don't employ them on staff full time because there's not enough work for them. We bring in consultants to do that. What we're finding, and we're constantly reviewing this, is there's certain kinds of things where actually it becomes more cost effective to have a permanent staff member. One example is we spend quite a lot on legal fees, as you can imagine. We've got a lot of legal contracts and things like that we have to deal with. We use external lawyers, but now we're looking at maybe it's worthwhile to bring an in-house lawyer. We'll still have to use specialists for specialist areas of law, but there's bread and butter legal stuff that we can actually bring someone in-house to do. Now that saves us money, but it looks like our bills are going up because our staff is increasing. So those would be the three things that I'd say that are driving up staffing costs.
Okay, thank you. Now, the final comment, I'm going to try and keep this short because we are in, times are tough. Inflation's very high, interest rates are very high, and it looks like it's going to stay that way for at least another year or so. And then hopefully, as the economy begins to recover, things will get a little bit better. So why on earth are we trying to close the funding gap so quick? And why on earth are we talking about spending huge amounts of money right now when in a year or two it might be an awful lot cheaper, or certainly not quite as expensive? Because I hear the comments about the fact that this is an old building and it needs work and it needs upgrading and a lot of people rely on it. But quite frankly, I just find it staggering. The idea that we can raise $50 million from somewhere in the ether out there for external funding is, I just don't get it. I just don't see us being able to raise that money. And so perhaps the Rex Morpeth idea needs to be, okay, it's one big project, the War Memorial Hall, the stadium and all these other bits. Maybe it needs to be broken down into smaller bite-sized pieces that we can actually afford.
Do it in stages, Andrew, is what you're kind of saying. Thank you very much.
Hello, my name is Gordon Dixon from Hobie Beach. I'll be brief. This is a question on behalf of someone who can't be here tonight. This is to Victor, Mayor Victor. Do you believe in open, transparent democracy? And if so, which were the councillors, and I'd like you to name them, who voted for and against the current proposal we have in front of us, please?
Yes, I'm for transparency and openness, obviously. As to who, there were no votes, there was consensus position. I have my view, everybody here's got a different view, but it's the sum total of the views that you've got in front of you.
So the proposal you have in front of us today has not been voted on by council?
No, there has to be no official vote, otherwise...
We adopted it as by
I'm asking the Mayor, can you please be quiet?
Yeah, there's been no vote, otherwise it would have been in a public agenda or something.
Okay.
But that's the consensus position, is that you can ask individual councillors here how they feel about the numbers that were put in front of you. I mean, my own view is that the numbers are too high for me. I don't think they're affordable, but this is what this is about.
Okay.
This gathering is about people expressing their views and sending a clear message to the people sitting up here.
Okay.
And, you know, elements of trust have been talked about, and some very good points have been made here tonight. I find myself saying, yes, he or she has got a point. And that's what we're here to do. We're here to take on board what you're saying.
So when the final vote goes, will you make the names of the people who voted for and against the final proposal available to the public, please?
No, absolutely, that would be just normal. That's normal.
Okay. Okay. Now, I'm one of the volunteers for the Whakatāne Action Group. We're going to be doing a whole lot of stuff. I'd like to thank the people who gave me $100 coming here. We need more money, so if you see me walking around and you've got cash in your pocket, we all need money because we've got to hire halls and stuff like that. And I'd like the council to think about, will you make available a hall or some council venue like perhaps the library for 12 meetings for the next 12 months, please?
I'm sure somebody will take that into consideration, Gordon. Good pitch. Well done. Well done. Right, next. Welcome, sir.
Good evening. I'm Dennis Gallagher.
Hi, Dennis.
I've heard a lot of talk of climate change bandied about recently, but I'm not hearing real hard figures. I'm assured to some members of council that it's getting worse, that the storms are worse, flooding, etc. I remember watching the Wahine storm of '68 here. That was truly remarkable. The only time I've ever seen power lines slammed together from both directions and arcing out. Not a tree standing afterwards. I was in the Corrigleen Height with my army unit and Cyclone Bowler hit us. Two of my mates, comrades, were killed by it. The Corrigleen pub was commandeered by the army to take in the exposure cases. We had recruits with us, there were over 70. And I'm told it's getting worse. Those storms I saw were absolutely ferocious. I haven't seen anything better than them yet, but we have been told it's getting worse. Sea level rise. One thing I cannot seem to get hold of is the council's figures for how much are the ratepayers going to spend for sea level rise, and on what values are they basing sea level rise. How many millimetres per 100 years, past and expected for the next 100 years. 1985, the United Nations IPCC told us that we'd be anywhere from half a metre to up to 1.1, 1.4 metres. They later brought the figure down to half of it, in fact 14% of the original value. Yet at the SOPAC conference, one the last, a consensus amongst the honest scientists there told us 155 millimetres per century. The facts don't agree with each other, it seems. So I'd like to know the real figures of sea level rise, how it's going to affect us financially, because I suspect that it's going to be a bit more than any of us think.
Thanks, Dennis.
I'd like to see some real transparency there.
Okay.
Right? Thank you for your time.
Thanks, Dennis.
There's a sea level map on the internet, and you can look at the various sea level rise in different parts of the country. It's not the same everywhere. Some places the sea is not rising, other places it is. It's not uniform. As for extreme weather events, I mean, you're right in that the Wahine disaster was a pretty major storm, but we had a pretty major one not that long ago on the east coast here, which is still in the bad way.
On the east coast?
If you look at extreme weather events, you can just look across the...
In April 1938, on that coast, they were hit really hard, okay, by the silt build-up back in 38 was so high, one of the witnesses there said you could stand on the silt and almost touch the telephone lines overhead. It was that high. The next January, 39, winds came in with a force that drove so much of that silt out, it turned that valley into a dust bowl. Farmers couldn't work. They went into their houses, sealed the windows, sealed the doors with sacks. They were choking. And you tell me that it's worse now? Give it a rest.
Thank you, Dennis. Evening, sir.
Yeah, good evening. My name's Ross Yebury.
Hi, Ross.
So first thing, I apologise for calling out over everyone before. I find it odd to be browbeaten about official languages in this country when, well, here's one thing to reflect on. If you were communicating with people in Maori, would you throw in random English words while you were communicating? That's one thing to reflect on. One question I have about the Rex Morpeth presentation you did, you were talking about history for a section there. You mentioned there was money raised for this facility and some upgrades, and raised doesn't really reflect what we're doing now. Has it been considered to raise money rather than force everybody in the community to pay for it for the next 50 years or however long it's going to take to pay off that? The other thing I would like to say is more of a comment rather than a question. A comment was made earlier about $500,000. It's $500,000. Was just for a business case for a second bridge, and that starts to look like it reflects badly on you guys that you need $500,000, which would buy you a house in this town, to figure out if you need a bridge. Seriously, it's starting to make you guys look stupid. I want to use nice words, but yeah, I think you guys need to reflect on that. So the questions were really, have you considered raising the money rather than forcing the rest of everybody, the whole community and the entirety of the community, to pay for it through rates? And the last piece was just
About costing for consultants?
about, not consultants, about business cases for things that are quite obvious. I think it's more of a statement than a question, but yeah. Thank you.
Ross, just one question. When you said, were you meaning fundraising as opposed to raising?
Well,
so
the
doing
words,
some
the
fundraising
words
activities.
used was raised about £20,000, and another
Right.
one was raised, I think it was £1 million or $1 million. I don't think it was really clarified at the time, but
Okay.
raised was the word, which sounds to me like people went out there with cap in hand, and the people that wanted to pay for it put in what they felt they could, and here we have this nice facility. And back then, £20,000 might have looked like $100 million to those people. I'm not sure. I don't know what the numbers are. But yeah, I think that is something that should be considered rather than going to general rates to look for that money. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ross, for your question. That is exactly what we are asking you. How should we scale, stage and fund the necessary upgrades? Andrew touched on staging, so that's a really good point to raise in your submission. And we are also asking you how we should fund it. And the option recommended in the long-term plan and the draft budget, we are proposing that we raise external funding of 50%. You are all free to say, no, we will only go ahead with this project, only recommend going ahead with this project if you fully raise, 100% of the cost of the project through external funding. So it's exactly what we're asking you. How should we fund the upgrades to this facility? How should we stage it? Okay. No, not borrow. I am suggesting that under the preferred option, we are saying that a portion is funded out of our rates, a portion comes from development contributions, and a portion comes from external parties like lotteries who do fund projects like this. And if you look on our website, there's reports that detail all the different community facilities that have raised significant sums of external funding. The Velodrome in Cambridge, they started out with a goal and raised even more, and I think it was largely fully externally funded. So not from council rates, from other funders who will give that money towards community facilities.
It's a really good question. I'm the chair of the Central Bay Hockey Trust, so we have the hockey turf in town. Now, it took us 15 years ago to fundraise $1.5 million to put the hockey artificial surface down. We did everything. The whole hockey community, other sponsors from business also came in and helped fundraise. You know, we did the sausage sizzle and the chocolate drives. A couple of years ago, the turf carpet needs complete replacing at $500,000. Now, what was different from last time to this time is that parents are all working. You know, 15, 20 years ago, you didn't need both mum and dad and often one of the older children to be going out working. And so this time when we went to the community to ask, you know, are you prepared to help fundraise? It was just like, we would love to, but we just don't have time. And we don't, and the time that they were needing was to help run their families. So what we did is that we took the lease fees from the Hockey Association and we saved a proportion of it for over 15 years. So when the $500,000 contract came up, we could go to lotteries and the pokie machines and all other sorts of external funders to say, hey, we still need $250,000. But because we had put our contribution in, it was a lot easier. So I'm not saying the hockey community didn't do anything at all, but the thing is they didn't have to do the same amount of the time fundraising that you've had to do in the past. And I suspect it doesn't matter what sport code or musical theatre or functions that we have here, the community doesn't have that time or that energy to be able to do it the same. We did see, as councillors, the reports and all the different big events, facilities around the country, and we actually couldn't believe how much the external funders gave. And so we're keeping our fingers crossed for that as well. But as Georgie said, we're going to be guided by you on how it will be staged and how it might be funded.
Next, please.
Good evening, I'm Janice Gerard and I'm a local. I've lived in the district all my life. My question to the council will come at the end. I've read through your papers and your presentations, and nowhere do I see any reference to smart cities. Now, if people are not aware, all councils in New Zealand are signed up to smart cities, and this is under the United Nations Globalist Plan, Agenda 2030. The 17 goals that they have, it sounds nice and airy-fairy, people-friendly, and in fact the interpretation and rollout of that is quite the opposite. Now, since this council has signed up to it, like all the other councils in New Zealand, we actually have the dubious honour of being the first country in the world to do that. I have to ask the council how many to achieve these things that have been signed up, how much of these costs, which is spend, actually comes back to this council? Because smart cities are not nice and sustainable and airy and fairy. It's actually surveillance and monitoring and data collection and surveillance. And there's a PDF file from Johns Hopkins University that says they have drones for surveillance of people and inoculation of people. So I think we have to face the facts. This is not as pretty as we would like it to be. So I would like the council to consider, they may not want to answer, how much of these extra spend is to commit to these sustainable cities.
Sustainable cities or the smart cities?
Smart cities.
Smart cities.
It comes under Agenda 2030. And it's a United Nations blueprint. Thank you.
That's very... maybe Jan, was it?
The 17 sustainable goals.
I'm aware of the United Nations Sustainable Goals. I don't know, I'm not aware that we, as a council, when we're putting together the long-term plan, have been taking that into consideration as much. So I'm interested to hear that our council has signed up to that, because we're still kind of learning about different components of it. But very happy to chat with you. You've got two climate change and sustainable people on council, it's right up their alley, but I'm sure any number of us would be pleased to chat with you.
Well, I'll just make a small comment. I noticed that there are monitoring systems going up around. The main supermarkets in various towns are monitoring the people, and we have 5G being shooting up here, there and everywhere, and I've personally recorded 5G 6 times the level. 6 times the safe level. 5G is actually a military weapon. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Can I just respond to be really clear? This is my third term in Parliament. I'm not aware that we've signed up to smart cities. Nothing has come to council to sign up to smart cities. And as far as I'm aware, all of the projects that we do because they have benefit in their own right. None of them are to do with smart cities.
But it has been made public. It's been public that all cities in New Zealand have signed up.
Okay.
We're not a city.
All right.
All councils.
The country has signed up to the UN 17 Sustainable Development Goals, that it has signed up to, but I don't know anything about smart cities.
I've made a note of it though. Thank you. Right.
Hi, I'm Liz Burns, and
Hi, Liz.
I would like to just make some comments. I've been looking through the financial statements for the council. I noted that last financial year, 2022 to 2023, council made a loss of 7.6 million when they were expected to be in a surplus of 12 million. So there was quite a significant difference in what was forecast there. We are now being told in this consultation document that there is a funding gap of 14 million. We can't read the most recent financial reports because they're not released yet, but I'm assuming there's probably another loss given that we are told that there's a 14 million gap now.
Liz, sorry, could you just speak a bit closer to the mic? Sorry, just so that we can really hear what you're saying.
Yep. I also noted from the documents that council are currently 150 million in debt, and they want to increase the debt over the next 10 years to about 330 million. Doing the maths on that, at the current debt levels, at a 5% interest rate, ratepayers will pay about 7.5 million per year on that, and at 330 million, pay 16.5 million per year on interest. Given that currently the rates are about 55 million incoming each year, and the wages for the council are about 26 million a year, they want to increase that by another 10 million in the next 10 years. So looking at just interest rates alone on the projected debt plus wages alone, it doesn't equate to what we're paying at all right now. So it looks like we're going to have sky-high rises in rates, and I think everyone in the district is probably quite concerned about that. We've got people in the district who are struggling to pay the bills at the moment, and I just think that every plan needs to have affordability at the forefront. You know, I understand the need for investment in the facilities and investment in our town, but at the end of the day, if it's not affordable, it's not viable. So that's all I want to say. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Liz. Good evening.
Mark Law.
Hi, Mark.
Born and raised here. Just looking at the building around here, I'm actually shocked at the state of it, and it looks like extreme lack of maintenance. Maybe maintenance hasn't been spent on the building so that it sort of pushes the case study for a new building. I don't know, but whoever's in charge of maintenance needs a rev up. I mean, I wouldn't let my house get to that stage. The last 3 years when we had the strategic plan, I did a submission on wastewater regarding the treatment of our sewage systems. We have a lot of trouble with, especially in Whakatāne, with the smell. Luckily, the last 2 summers have been cooler instead of warmer, so we haven't had as much smell. But there's the smell, there's the sludge, desludging of the ponds, not just Edgecombe. I mean, not just Whakatāne. There's Whakatāne, Edgecombe, Murupara, and Taniatua. They all have the same issue. So my submission last time was to introduce bacteria into the water, and I did a sample of the water in the Whakatāne one. There was no chlorine, which was great. The pH was a good level for the survival of bacteria. And I talked to one of the guys who's in charge of wastewater in Napier, who uses the system, and he just couldn't rave about it as much. I just couldn't get off the phone. The guy was just so excited about how it was working, and because the bacteria doesn't just stop the methane gas coming off the ponds, it digests, the bacteria digest all of the sludge, so you don't have the desludging problem you have. And the guy from Napier basically said the same thing. A lot of farmers are using it now where they had issues with their ponds sludging up, and they're using this bacteria. As long as the pH is right and there's no chlorine and they're killing the bacteria, the ponds are a lot more healthy. So I was just wondering if the councillors who are at that last hearing, or maybe the person who's in charge of wastewater here, could just let me know if any further action was taken, or any, whether it went any further. Because I made a verbal submission as well, and the Mayor asked me if I'd talked to anybody who'd used it, but he saw that I had talked to someone from Napier.
Thank you, Mark. Apologies, I wasn't at council at the last LTP process, so I missed your presentation and submission. I do know that odour's been a challenge. Temperature, bacteria levels, pH levels have definitely been a challenge. We've put a lot of investment into the ponds. We've got aerators going in, and there's processes around desludging happening. But I'm really interested in the bacteria conversation, and we are actually going down to Hawke's Bay in a couple of weeks to visit some treatment plants. So I'll make sure I ask that question. So thank you for pointing that out.
Yeah, they've been using them overseas as well, in big cities, and they're reusing the water. They're actually putting it back into drinking water after it's been treated, and it's that good. They've tested it, and there's nothing wrong with the water, and so you don't get the semi-treated water going out to sea. The bacteria is really important. It's the same bacteria that's in everything. It's in the ground, it's in plants, and it's just giving it a boost. And once you've actually loaded the bacteria in, it generates flat out. It just reproduces, and it doesn't need redosing. They actually just keep on, regenerating, and so it's just a one-off cost basically. So yeah, talk to the guy in Napier, and he might be able to get your costs down for running these wastewater systems.
Thank you. I wish I met you 2 years ago.
Brilliant, thank you.
Thank you.
Can I just with a little show of hands, how many people have we got left to ask questions? 2? Okay, so I've got 2 people waiting, is that right? 3, that is it. 3 is it? 4. No. Have we got 4 or 3? Okay, so we're going with... Okay, so 4 final, and I'd like them to be quite quick, please. We are at 9:17, and I do want you to have the opportunity to have a very quick chat with people, so can we please move through promptly? The lovely Raywin Kingsley-Smith.
I don't even have to introduce myself, and look where the mic is. I couldn't be happier than I am in this moment. I hope you can hear me.
No, so get closer to the mic.
I couldn't be happier than I am in this moment, looking at this hall full of people, when I've been told over and over again, Raywin, you're a minority, you're a bunch of stupid old pensioners. Thank you for coming tonight and proving them wrong.
Well done. Thank you, Raywin, very much. Sir.
I'm David Dowd.
Hello, David.
My submission this year will be on a thing called the Harbour Fund. It's late. I've struggled. It hasn't been possible for me to get any figures about the Harbour Fund. And it is a subject that I think a lot of us are pretty interested in. Don't have to remind you about a certain job that's happening on that scene. So, what is missing here is that there is no set of accounts. I will say that again. There is no set of accounts for which the Whakatāne District Council is responsible for the Harbour Fund. Oh, just by the way, the Harbour Fund has got an approximate capital value of around, it could be 130 million. And it's leasehold properties, most of it, on the Strand. It's a good earner. It isn't big, and nobody should look to it as being the answer to all of our problems. But since councillors make the decisions about where these funds are invested, I think there should be an annual set of accounts.
Thank you, David. I'm just going to...
Well, my understanding is that the Harbour Board leases, about 130 of them, total around about $40 to $50 million, roughly, in their current state. The Harbour Fund itself is not you're right, it's not a discrete account. It is a ring-fenced chunk of change within council consolidated revenue, but all of the money that goes in there is accounted for, and that's about $14 million.
So some of my figures are wrong. I wonder why they're wrong. It's because I have no way of finding out what is right.
Well, you just asked, so I told you.
I'll have a go, folks.
Thanks.
If anyone's interested.
Yeah, okay, thank you, David.
I believe the info's in the annual report, but...
Next, please.
Hey guys, sorry I got up earlier and got so flustered and nervous that I forgot to actually put my question to you. I actually just wanted to ask, and I apologise if I'm Johnny come lately and it has been addressed, but is there a plan for an exit strategy from Whakatāne for all of us locals in the case of an emergency? Is there future planning happening? Is there any consideration on how we get out without gridlock?
They had a mock thing about 3 years ago. It took me an hour to get from Bay Street to the bridge.
I must have been behind you.
Thank you, David.
Evening, thank you for that question. Simple answer is yes, we are about to start proper evacuation planning for both tsunami risk and river flooding risk here in Whakatāne. Appreciating that it isn't as simple as you just jump in your car and cross the bridge. People will be heading in all directions. Some will need support for where they go as well. And then there are some legacy issues when people have left, what happens around security, looting and that sort of thing. So it's quite a complex area. It's not as simple as just where do people go. It's a bit more complicated than that. But those two plans are our priority. Thank you.
Thanks, David. Thanks, Liam. I'm hoping, sir, you are my lucky last.
Yeah.
Well done. Sticking it to the end. Go for it.
I would like to know from the council, what are they doing to reduce costs of the running of the council? Reducing staff, selling off assets, properties, better inventory management, upkeep a road for the roading guys, whoever you are there. You have a lot of stock lying out there.
What are we doing to reduce costs? Well, I mean, we're trying to improve efficiency. That's one thing we're doing to try to reduce costs, but you know, there's lots more you can always do. You can keep cutting. The question is, how far do you cut? Because whilst a lot of people want to cut things, it gets to the point that they don't want to lose some of their services as well. So, you know, I think we've got a bare minimum of about 12% rates increases, which would just keep us where we are, essentially, just keep the current services going. And a lot of that is the inflationary increase and a few other bits and bobs. So the minimum we can probably get down to is around the 12% mark. But you chuck in some other, you know, things that a lot of people consider not terribly essential, you raise that number. So, yeah.
Are there no properties you can sell?
Well, we're looking at, I mean, one of the things that, you know, prior to the elections, one of the things that I stood on was trying to do a better job of funding ourselves, because we've got our funding model is not sustainable. It's just not, we just can't keep coming to ratepayers and sticking our hands in your pockets, and we realise that, so we've got to do a better job of helping ourselves. And those harbour board properties, they might be part of the solution, but there's other things that we should think about doing that actually generate income, so that we don't have to dip into your pocket so much.
Thank
But
you.
It's something that's not going to happen in 5 minutes.
Thanks, Victor. I'm now going to draw the evening to a close, and I just want to tell you a couple of things that I've really listened and heard you say. Trust is very high on the agenda. Affordability and making good and sound financial decisions moving forward. That a real understanding that the community and ratepayers are struggling, and we all know that, and so we are looking to our council to show leadership in some of these areas. And so can I thank you for turning up in numbers. It is amazing to see so many people turning up to have a voice. I'm going to actively encourage the council to keep doing things like this, because I think it is very important that they are your elected representatives and you get the opportunity to ask them questions. Can I congratulate you on being very well behaved? It's always a good thing in a public meeting, and thank you for being tolerant and waiting to have your questions answered. I'm going to ask Tu if he will close the meeting with a karakia, but just before he does that, thank you for tolerating me as your MC this evening. It has been an absolute privilege. I'm very proud to live in the Eastern Bay of Plenty. I think we rock, and I think that we have so many things we need to be celebrating in this town and in this district. So thank you very much.
And I'd like to just emphasise what Bronwyn said and say that thanks on my behalf and the behalf of the rest of the councillors here for conducting yourselves in the spirit in which you have, and great to see you turn out and, you know, put your questions and your comments. So thank you very much.
One last thing, 5 p.m. Friday. Get that submission in. If you have to join together with a mate to write it, I don't care, but write it. Get your voice heard. It is the only way you get the change you want. Thank you so much. Tu, my apologies for cutting you off.
Kia tau ki a tātou katoa, tātou whai o tātou ariki ari ukarati. Te aroa ki ato, with the whiwhinga tahitanga, te wairua tapu, ake. Amen. Kia ora everybody, thank you.
Good evening, thank you.
And just one final round of applause for Bronwyn, our MC.